All right, great. So again, welcome everyone. Today we have a very special event. Bill Cook, who is our EMCC librarian, is going to be talking to us about the Great Bangor Fire of 1911, which destroyed pretty much all of downtown, as I understand, right? Oh, hundreds of businesses were destroyed, residential homes, people were injured. It really changed the city of Bangor. So I am really excited to have Bill here to talk about this today. And then after Bill shares some of his photos and some of the history, then Liz Russell and Chris Kelly are going to be doing a little Maine trivia. So winner does get a prize for that. So definitely stick around at the end to play a little bit of trivia. And without further ado, Bill, I am going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen now?
Sure can.
Good. Okay, the Great Bangor Fire started April 30th and went through May 1st, 1911. That's not working. There we go. This is Bangor before the fire. Let me get my laser pointer up here. A couple things you want to notice here is the City Hall. This is the Exchange Street side of the Kentuskeg. That's Kentuskeg Stream, River, whichever you want to call it. This building here is the Custom House, or the later on the U.S. Post Office. And we'll be coming back to that later. Now, the fire covered 55 acres of Bangor and 270 buildings, residences, et cetera, were a total loss. At the time, it was $3.2 million, which translates roughly into $70 million. So it was not a cheap fire. Now, fires like this were very common in large cities. In 1866, Portland had a large fire which covered the area from Congress Street to Munjoy Hill and pretty well flattened the whole area. But in Bangor, fire started around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a Sunday afternoon, April 30th. It started in the hay barn of J. Frank Green, and that's down on Broad Street. And the closest landmark, I think, is somewhere around the Sea Dog. I think it was actually under the bridge, but that's roughly where the fire started. And you can see the building construction is rather, it's wood, and it's old wood, dried wood, which burns very, very rapidly. Shortly thereafter, and you can see the Bangor firefighters. I don't know if we have any firefighters in the crowd, but you'll notice the advanced turnout gear. Bangor claimed to have a top-rated fire department and fire suppression system. After the Portland fire, Bangor hooked up their water mains to the fire hydrants and such to the standpipe. So they had a large reservoir of water. They could also draw from the river. The alarm system went into the homes of every firefighter. And there were 6 stations. That's the top of the line equipment of the Bangor Fire Department in 1911. Steam pumper, 350 gallons a minute. And they still operate very nicely. And the 2 engineers, as they were called, Now the map is courtesy of the Bangor High School, Margaret Chernosky's class. Was done from the Maine Community Heritage Project in 2005. And you can see here is the Broad Street area where the fire started. It jumped the Kenduskeag and then spread this way. The winds, you know the time of year, we have a high winds. And this particular day was a nice day, but it was very windy. And later on in the fire, there was a debris from the Morris Oliver building, which is roughly in this area, spread 2 miles. So that's how things were spreading. That's how the fire spread so rapidly. There's the fire on Broad Street after it kind of got out of hand. And you can see the way the wind is blowing and the smoke is going. A little bit better picture. Now, some of these pictures are colorized, and this was done by the Leland Whipple studio. Most of the photos that are in black like this are lantern slides, and they were taken by Leland Whipple during and after the fire. So the building back here is the custom house and the post office. We'll be coming back to that later. And you can see the 2 spires of the church, the 2 steeples. We'll be coming back to that later also. This is where the fire jumped across the burning embers and such, went across the Kenduskeag and started on the roofs of these. Most of these are just pure wooden buildings, very little brickwork. And they went up fast. And you can see one of the buildings already fully involved. The S.L. Crosby Company is the same company where, same family with Fly Rod Crosby, the first Maine guide, who happened to be a woman. She had Maine guide license number 1. And the Fairbanks Company that burned next. If you notice the crowd, somehow fires draw crowds and people love to gawk at the spectacle. A little bit further on, this is the Bangor Savings Bank building, which the next 2 floors of the Bangor Public Library, and the top floor was the Bangor Historical Association. The entire building burned, along with the collections. It's about 70,000 books for the Bangor Public Library. And you can see already the upper floor is burning. And the crowds are still there.
Bill, are those buildings all in the same general area as where the
Yes.
Sea Dog?
Oh,
Is
Sea Dog will be over here.
Okay.
Okay, that's Broad Street. And then the fire jumped and
Oh,
started
okay.
the buildings over here because of the high wind. And this is about 6 o'clock in the evening. It's burning in 3 different places. A little bit further on, the Bangor Library is now fully involved. And you'll notice the flames coming out. Here's a colorized version of it, which gives you an indication that it's starting to burn because of the radiant heat. The flames, the building was so hot that it started the buildings across the street burning. You also notice that the crowd that we saw earlier has dissipated. I wonder why. But it also spread over to Exchange Street. And this is late in the day, almost in the evening, the Bangor Telephone Exchange. Now the telephone exchange was being manned by quite a number of young ladies who were the phone operators. And they stayed at their posts, answering calls, routing calls, until they had to be forcibly removed from the building. And shortly thereafter, the building collapsed. which this could have been a major, major tragedy, especially with the shirtwaist factory, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which happened in March of 1911 in New York City, was still fresh in everyone's minds. And I'm sure that prompted the police to go in and get the young ladies out of there. Fortunately, the tragedy was averted. This is about 7 in the evening, I think actually a little bit later. We could see the glow. Broad Street fire has pretty well just become a smoking mass. This building here is the Custom House, or the Bangor Post Office. Behind that was the Norumbega Hall. And the fire is burning there and burning up in this area now. This building with the steeple here is Union Station. That's the railroad station for Maine Central. And you can see a locomotive right here. That remained intact, did not burn, because the wind was blowing the other direction. Now we have Exchange Street, which was actually one of the hearts of the business district of Bangor. This is being Exchange Street before the fire. That's Exchange Street after the fire. And you can see from the hoses that the fire department did deploy here. Again, the buildings mostly being wooden, didn't last very long. And right after the fire started, it was still on Broad Street, the Bangor Fire Department sent out a mutual aid call to Waterville, Lewiston, Augusta, and Portland for equipment and men. Bangor had 4 pumpers, but obviously it wasn't enough. And Portland Fire Department got up here in 3 hours and 20 minutes, which is amazing. They just piled the stuff on a special train and raced it up to Bangor. It's amazing. A fire company from Boston also was on the way up, but stopped in Portland to put out a fire because the Portland Fire Department was on the way to Bangor. So this is the Morris Oliver building, which is on the corner of Exchange and State Street. And this is the site of one of the fatalities. There were only 2 fatalities during the fire. John Scribner, who is a 70-year-old firefighter from Brewer. I guess from the accounts, his eyesight was very poor and he got mixed up in the building, got tangled in some of the down electric wires, and before he could be extracted, one of the walls collapsed on him. The other was George Abbott, another Brewer firefighter. There were no Bangor fatalities, just the 2 Brewer firefighters. A chimney collapsed on him when he was fighting one of the dwellings. In the morning after, this is State Street, and this is here the Morris Oliver building. You can see the crowds were out and the things were still smoking and hot. Some of the devastation in the burn district from Franklin Street. The Franklin Street bridge over the Kenduskeag was the only bridge that was open. All the others have been lost. Again, the crowds the morning after, they have to see what's going on. People really haven't changed much. The bridge over the Kenduskeag and Franklin Street. You'll notice some of the buildings up here are totally unscathed. The wind was in a different direction. This shows it better. And this is the Graham building here, which was one of the newer buildings. The Graham building was designed to be, or was touted as being, a fireproof building. Well, the walls seemed to be okay, but the inside was all wood, and it took about 2 hours to burn. They altered the definitions of fireproof buildings. The buildings here in the back were not in the path of the fire. So this Bangor does have some older buildings that were unscathed by the fire. Another one, the Graham building. Now the Graham building was the Bangor Electric Railway and the Bangor Electric Company. And it was Mr. Graham was the owner, and needless to say, the street railway and the electricity were out for a few days, actually about 10 days, which, considering the amount of devastation, is quite remarkable that they got it all back going again. Those of you that are Bangor High graduates, this is what was left of the Bangor High School. It was a wood structure built in the 1830s, and it went up very quickly. The new Bangor High School is roughly across the street on the right, and the new Bangor Public Library is roughly where the camera is. This area here was now the Abbott Square parking lot. Now, this is the post office and custom house, because Bangor was a port. So vessels came in here and they had to check in at the custom house. And the federal post office was here. Right at the beginning of the fire, not much mail was lost because the postal workers saw what was coming and moved all the mail out before fire hit the building. The building in the back, now this building was built of stone. Okay, that's good solid stone construction. The building back here was Norumbega Hall. And Norumbega Hall appears to have been built of stone. It was a little bit of trompe d'oeil, and but it was not. It was built all of wood. But Norumbega Hall was the meeting hall, theater, all kinds of just a general community center. Here's the area shown, the Graham building, Morse Oliver, actually it's Morse Oliver, and the post office custom house. You notice there's a vacant area behind the post office and custom house. Being of stone, the building was totally gutted. Notice the area behind it, nothing left of it at all. That's where Norumbega Hall was. Norumbega Hall was totally destroyed because it was built of wood in the 1850s. So, it was over like 60 years old building, and the wood was nice and dry. Bangor began to rebuild almost immediately following the fire, almost a day after. It's probably 2 days after, maybe. They're already starting to string electric wires and telephone wires. I can see the street railway here, which had to be cleaned up. Building with the spire here is City Hall. Now, the fire stopped less than a block from City Hall because one of the new buildings had a firewall built in, and the fire didn't go any further. This is Morse Oliver building, or what was left of it. Again, getting the street lights going, getting the wires going. And this white vehicle here is Mayor Charles Mullen and William Mansour, architect, going through the city, assessing the damage. Now, this is probably about a week or so after the fire. As a view of the burned district. You can see the custom house and post office. There's the Unitarian Church. Remember, we saw that right at the beginning with the two little spires. Those are gone. This is a central congregational church here. And you notice all the little shacks. These are businesses that were burned that already began to spring up and get back into business. Bangor really recovered very rapidly. You notice this unburned building in the midst of the burned district. That is the Tarotine Club. That's still in existence. And why it didn't burn, of course, it was a brick building and it was far enough away from anything that was really hot. And the burning embers landing on the roof, the members of the club went to the roof with buckets of water and bucket brigaded it and put out every ember that landed on the roof so the building didn't burn. That was built in 1906. There's the Universalist Church, which was totally gutted. It was rebuilt. It's now the Unitarian Universalist Church, and they never put the steeples back on. This is a central congregational church, and there's a story about the Reverend Smith when he saw the fire coming, went into the church, grabbed the Bible, came out with the Bible, carrying it back to his home, buried it in the front yard until after the fire was done, brought it up, and the Bible does still exist. Just one of the many, many stories. This is the first congregation. So we have the Central Congregational Church. This is the first congregational church. And that's what was left of it after the fire. Now, if we're familiar with the All Souls Congregational Church, that's the one on Broadway as you're heading towards the Brewer Bridge. It kind of has a long, very steep, long, Gaudi-esque looking spire. The All Souls Church was built from bricks and stones from these two churches that burned. And if you stop and take a look at the All Souls Church, you'll see that the stones and bricks are different colors. And those are from the two different churches. There are really very few remnants from the fire, but if you go along Exchange Street, there were a few of the buildings, I think one of them is on the corner of Oak Street, where you can see two different color of bricks. The lower being pre-fire and the upper being post-fire. Now, this is all that was left of the First Baptist Church, which is up on Center Street and kind of behind the Bangor Library now. This church rebuilt, and they rebuilt with a Tiffany window. Up on French Street, the St. John's Congregation, scrape my tongue, St. John's Episcopal Church burned, and they had a Tiffany window that was lost. So Bangor still has one Tiffany window. One of the oddities of the fire, this is up on Broadway, and the fire stopped at Broadway because Broadway was a wide avenue and was a perfect fire break. Also, the fact that it rained overnight helped too. That didn't hurt the suppression. But both of the houses around the Coe house, which is this one here, burned, and yet the Coe house didn't. The Coe family is one of the very prominent families in business families in Bangor. And the very last building to be demolished and taken down was the federal building, the post office, the custom house. And that was in 1915, after most of Bangor had already been rebuilt. You'll notice the brand new building right next to it. And of course, that's because all the federal red tape took an incredible amount of time to get through. And the new post office was built again on Harlow Street, on the corner of Harlow and State and Park Street. And that's where the current City Hall is, before the post office moved over to the federal building separated. So Bangor came back very rapidly within 3 years. And Mayor Mullen, on the day following the fire, said, Bangor is undaunted. Bangor will come back. And they did. And that's the Bangor Fire in a nutshell.
That was fantastic, Bill. Does anyone have questions? That was, I mean, looking at the perspectives, right? The photos and kind of trying to place what's there now.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine, right? Like what the downtown must have looked like at that time. That is just mind boggling. Anyway, so yeah, do we have any questions before we switch to main trivia? Yeah, Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica. Unmute.
Hi, yes, I found that very interesting. So I was wondering about the travel from the other towns. How did they get their fire equipment to Bangor? You said by train?
Yeah, by rail. Of course, in 1911, the rail system was much, much better than it is today. As I said, the Portland Fire Department immediately put their equipment and men on a special train. Maine Central put on special trains for this, and 3 hours and 20 minutes they were here, and that's about how long it takes to drive to Portland. So it was very efficient and very, and they were used. One thing that came out of the fire, and Mr. Graham, being a prominent businessman, demanded the Bangor City Council that new building ordinances and new building codes be put into place to prevent further fires. Because Bangor didn't expect a fire. It was totally unexpected. Bangor people thought we can handle it, no problem. Yeah. Any more questions?
I think
Totally.
we've got a hand raised over here. Yeah, Rob had his hand raised and then Terry has a question as
I see.
well.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, thanks. My daughter here wants to know if you know any more about how the fire started. We heard you say it was a hay barn, I think, but do you know any more than that?
Well, that is a really interesting question because we really don't know. The rumors that were going around, and it's something that's almost impossible to prove, is, okay, it was the wrong time of year for hay to spontaneously combust. That would happen, right after haying season in July, maybe end of June. This was the end of April, so the hay was well dry. And the rumors that were going around that there were boys playing cards and smoking in Mr. Green's hay barn, which is not unlikely, let's put it that way. Smoking in a hay barn is not a good thing to do anyway. And it probably was the cause, but we'll never know.
So
Sure.
my question is, I live in Little City and my house was built in 1907, which was obviously before the fire. How far up did it come up on to this end, like where St. Joe's is, or did
Okay.
it all stay completely down there?
it all stayed completely down in that area. As you saw from the map, it pretty well stayed between, in the State Street downtown area, and then it was spread it up towards, because of the prevailing wind, spread it up towards Broadway. And it basically burned Broadway until it hit the park, which was
There are several houses in our neighborhood that are on postage stamp size lots.
Mhm.
And I've heard that they said that it was a bigger lot, but they sold half of it so they could rebuild their house, and somebody built their house right next to them, which is why some houses are less than almost an arm's length
Right.
apart from each other. They're that close. So,
Yeah, really
that was
close
interesting.
together.
mhm.
Yeah.
Who else?
I think Jeremy had a question.
I've got a question. So I missed a small portion of this bill. So if you covered it, just tell me to go away. So I used to, I'd give tours of the city sometimes, and I've always told people that the reason downtown is made out of bricks is because after the fire, they rebuilt everything with bricks. And that's the reason we have canals, is to support such heavy buildings. They had to shore up everything. Am I giving people factual information or only like a
Yeah.
half truth?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like Norumbega Hall and the post office, the nice mall that sort of separates Bangor with a Kentuskeg, that it goes down either side, and there's that nice park. There's a big bronze cannon, there's a couple statues. That's where they did that to be a fire break. Following the fire, all kinds of top-notch architects, top-notch builders, basically Bangor spared no expense in rebuilding the city. And they just used absolutely state-of-the-art, the best materials, mostly bricks. If you noticed in that first slide that the backside of Exchange Street were mostly old rickety wooden buildings, and no more. Downtown had to be at least fire resistant, and firewalls put into some of the buildings.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, do we have any other questions for Bill? Okay, so Bill, this has been fantastic. I learned so much from that presentation. I had no idea about any of this stuff, so this has been a true education for me. I'm interested to see more, honestly. I want to hear some stories at some point, right? Because you said there's lots of stories around this.
Oh, we can go on and on. In 2011, we commemorated the 100th anniversary, and that's what I made this slideshow for. We got 3 or 4 other slideshows. Most of the photos here are in the collection of the Bangor Public Library. There's also some from the Bangor Historical Society and some from the personal collection of Richard Shaw. And Dick Shaw has probably forgotten more about Bangor history than I've ever learned, and I've been working with it for over 20 years. So if you want to do it on the Brady gang, Dick Shaw is the person for you. He's the authority on the Brady incident.
We'll have to do some kind of an event on that too, because being a newcomer to Bangor, I've heard about this a lot, and I would love to learn more about that. So we'll definitely have to do some more programs soon on that.
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you so much, Bill. This has just been such an excellent presentation. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit now. So if y'all want to stick around to win a prize, we're doing a little Maine trivia, and I'm going to turn it over to Liz and Chris.
Thanks, Tasha. We've created a little trivia contest. There are only 10 questions because we always like to have a way for our participants to earn a little prize. So Chris, do you want to explain to everyone what they need to do? Can you give Chris sharing rights, Tasha?
Hi, everyone. We're going to be playing trivia via Kahoot today. If you have never done a Kahoot before, you can play on either your mobile phone or on your computer. It's probably easier to do from your phone if you have one that's web capable. You'll want to go to the web address kahoot.it. I just put that in the chat. And then you'll be prompted to enter a code to join a game with, and give me just a second to get that up for you. And then from there, different questions will come up. I'll read them out to you, or Liz will read them out to you, one of us. And you will answer as quickly as you can. Time is very important in a Kahoot. And as you answer them, correct answers will earn you points. The faster your answer, the more points you get. And whoever comes out on top will be our winner. And I think Liz has some fun information to share along the way about some of these different questions. So this is the game pin right up here for you to enter.
Lou, you shouldn't need a pin. You just need the, well, the game pin is on the screen. It's 3419875. Thanks for coming, Jessica.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Has everybody had a chance to log in?
Not yet. I'm still fussing with it.
Okay.
But go ahead and play. Okay, there it is. 3, 4.
Okay,
Yay.
now that I see Darlene's in, I'm going to go ahead and get started. The game pin will still show up if anybody's still working on joining. It should show up in the top right corner, and it's also in the chat.
Chris, why don't you go ahead and run the show?
Okay. What size is the bean boot located outside the LL Bean store in Freeport? Size 160, size 360, size 210, or size 410?
Excuse me. Of course.
And after each question, Kahoot is going to show us the leaderboard for the folks who are in the top 5 positions. And you'll see all 4 of these people had the question right, but it was Andrew who answered, who answered the fastest. So he earned the most points. What is the least populous county in the state of Maine? Aroostook, Piscataquis, Franklin, or Washington? This one surprised me. I thought it was going to be Aroostook or Washington.
Is there a prize for failing miserably? Just
No.
checking.
The smallest city by population in Maine is Bangor, Eastport, Bradford, or Waterville. The photo is not a hint.
Yeah, because that's Bahaba.
Exactly, Liz. Well, I
No, it
couldn't
wasn't.
include a photo of Eastport, or it might be too obvious.
Woo,
Some
I
of
got
you may
one.
not have known that Eastport is actually a city. Some of you probably thought it's a town, so it couldn't possibly be the smallest city.
I thought Bradford was too obvious.
Who is Maine's Secretary of State? Sheena Bellows, Matthew Dunlap, Aaron Frey, or Shelley Pingree?
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Shenna Bellows is actually the first female Secretary of State.
That is true.
Which of the following is not true? Maine is the only state that has one syllable in its name. Maine is the only state that is only bordered by one other state. Maine is the only state that has 2 female senators. Maine is the 12th smallest state by area. Maine was the blank state to join the Union, 19th, 23rd, 21st, or 31st.
Ooh, Lou's in the lead again.
Yeah, I see that.
Students got to catch him.
The main Indian tribes, Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, are known as the Wabanaki. Wabanaki means people of the dawn, the people of where the white rocks stick out, my friends, or the people. The Wabanaki are the people of the dawn. You may have seen this on the Student Life Facebook page when we were celebrating Native American history. What is the official insect of Maine? The mosquito, the honeybee, the black fly, or the brown-tail moth?
The big giant mosquitoes, let's be honest.
Only one person knew it was the honeybee.
Well, I think that's better than my choice anyway.
Woo, I got one right.
Question 9, who was the first governor of Maine? Enoch Lincoln, Hannibal Hamlin, William King, or Joshua Chamberlain? This is the person pictured, if that helps you in any way.
I think I'm
I
related
voted
to
for
this
him.
person via my eyebrows.
Did Lou say he voted for him?
How many miles is Maine's coastline? 2,638 miles, 3,156 miles, 3,722 miles, or 3,478 miles. And here is our winner's podium. In third, Andrew Snowman with 4 out of 10 correct. In second place, Jen H with 5 out of 10. And with 6 out of 10 correct, we have Lou Miller.
Woo!
Halsey and our tutor coordinator, Jeremy, were our runners up.
Just for what it's worth, a non-Maine native won that.
Yes, I see that.
I was just gonna make that comment. I feel like this is unfair to non-Maine natives, right? I'm only 2 years in here. I didn't
I
know
just
any
want
of
to
these
point out that a
questions.
non-Maine native.
I was
lost, too.
born in the same state that Maine was.
Yes.
Hey, well, and an 8-year-old came in 4th place, so.
Ouch, ouch.
But she's a Maine native.
True, you're right. There you go.
Good for her.
Oh, God. So that's what we have for trivia.
That was
Thanks, guys.
awesome.
Thanks.
So
Off to
fun.
another meeting. Thank you very much, guys.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you everyone for coming. So I'm going to be uploading this video and I'll make sure that this link gets sent out to folks so they can watch it later. But this has been awesome. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Chris. Super fun
Yeah,
event.
thanks.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Have fun. See y'all later.